Hey, everybody. Here we are with Dan Keller, co-founder of Flux and a fellow geek. We are here today to talk about all things Flux. So what the Flux is happening with you, Dan?
What the flux is happening with you too, man. And yes, my wife would agree. I am a geek. That is for sure. So we were just kidding about that the other night. Kid said something about calling me a geek. I was like, well, I was kind of cool in high school. And my wife's like, no, you're a geek. I'm like, all right, well,
That's all right.
That used to be an insult, but now it means you got it up here, buddy. So
That's right.
I'll take it.
Geeks rule the world nowadays, for sure.
Amen.
So I want to just kind of keep this open in general, like sit down, shoot the shit kind of thing. I want to talk about obviously the big, elephant in the room, proof of useful work, as well as the other elephant in the room, Cypherpunk, and then a couple of smaller elephants that I just wanted to get clarity on, things like on your roadmap and whatnot. So the big question for me, and it kind of always has been, a little bit of my background is I'm a Microsoft solution specialist at a managed service provider. We have our own private data centers, private clouds that we offer to our customers for, all things from domain controllers and Active Directory to, dedicated VNets and all the fun stuff, right? Anything you can do in Azure or AWS, you can do in our private cloud. We provide an SLA to our customers of, 3 nines. Same with AWS and most things in Azure. I think a minimum is 3 nines. Will Flux have an SLA for proof of useful work?
Yes, sir. Yeah, ultimately, we're building proof of useful work to be enterprise-based. So, we have to understand SLAs and, service level agreements, if anybody's wondering what that means. SLAs are unbelievably important, especially for your enterprise-based customers. There is definitely going to be several tiers of infrastructure. So we realize that not everybody's going to use the Flux the exact same way. So if they're using, the proof of useful work side on the node network, that's going to look a little bit different than somebody that's getting rendering or AI on the card side of the network. So yes, absolutely. And you got to remember, Flux was built by technologists. I'm a CIO by trade. You know what I mean? So we had data lakes, data clouds, you name it, everything else under the sun. So the majority of the people that are working on the product are all technologists at heart. So they're infrastructure folks. That's who really kind of gravitates toward this project. So, we have to understand that there needs to be, continuity planning, there needs to be DRP, there needs to be, SLAs, there need to be pieces into this that makes it feel a lot like Web 2, because those Web 2 components, they should just transfer right over to the Web 3 world. And the other thing too is for mass adoption, whether it's on the enterprise level or whether it's on the the retail level, you're going to need to have those things in place for it to be successful. We also have a 30-day money back guarantee. If you come to Flux and you don't like it after 30 days, we'll give your money back, because that's the way that we want this to roll. We don't believe in people bringing it over, and if they don't get the support or the help they need to develop it, we want to make sure that they're going to get the best, even if they're exiting the environment, which we haven't had to do yet, which is good.
Wow, that's really impressive. I think some of the other big players do that as well. So it's good to see that you're on par on that same type of level as like an AWS, that, hey, if you don't like it, okay, fine. Here's your trial period or whatnot, and money back guarantee. So with useful work, how do you plan to keep Flux decentralized when large farms and data centers actually join the network?
Well, the good news is we're spreading it over multiple projects. So it doesn't necessarily have to be about Flux. It has to be about blockchain as a whole. So you can mine any project you want and participate in proof of use of work. So say I'm mining Caspa or Cadena or whatever it is, and that's my proof of work project that I mine. I can still, in a single pane of glass in our proof of use in Fluxcore, which is our proof of use of work console, you'll still be able to be available for proof of use of work, which means you can leave the network and come back again. So, that allows people to really kind of do profit switching on steroids. And it also, you're going to have individuals that want to just straight mine the product. And there, maybe there isn't, for Flux, we're only going to use about 40% to start with, 50% of the total network that's available at the beginning. that can go to proof of use work. So it still keeps our decentralized footprint. Still our consensus mechanism and our transactional validating side of the network continues to remain and keep rolling forward. And we're even looking at initiatives to keep even other projects more decentralized as well. And we're going to have the ability to have a random pool connection. So instead of connecting to the biggest pool that has 80% of the hash, it's going to be able to connect to the micro pools, the smaller pools. And normal, entry level folks that are coming in, they don't give a shit about what pool it is. They just want to mine. So for us, we're going to have that set as a rotationary cycle so that we push more miners, especially entry level miners. Dan has 2 graphics cards on his desk. He downloaded Fluxcore. He's now running proof of use work. He's mining Flux. It goes in, it says, hey, connect to this pool, and done. It's all behind the scenes. It's like I use the analogy of my wife going to the ATM. She just puts her card in, puts her number in, pulls her cash, and leaves. Most of the people that we're going to get on the retail side of adoption, or the new users using the platform, they could give 2 craps about all the, the pool setups and, all that. They just want to hit mine, it mines, and then, yes, I want to do useful work, and it goes to useful work. So it's like anything. We're going to have to find the centralized components. I mean, you're only as decentralized as your most centralized component. So we have to understand what we're looking at. We have some awesome stuff that's coming down the pike that really helps to promote that decentralization. So whether you're running a node or whether you're mining or whether you're using proof of use work, the goal is to make sure that it's decentralized across the board.
That's fantastic. And I agree with you. I think that, the point of no return really is when blockchain and crypto technologies are just being used in the back end and you don't even know that you're using it. Like your ATM analogy, I don't care what servers are being pinged when I swipe my Visa. It just works.
Yeah, and I mean, really, honestly, when you think about it, that's what's going to push us to the next level for adoption of blockchain. Is we get the complexities out of it and it's more seamless. So the decentralized underpinnings are there and the fundamentals are there. The end users, the retail users, they don't care about any of that. They just want it to work effectively. They want to be able to participate and feel like they're in the in crowd, right? Because that's what, that feel of, mining and things like that, checking your wallet and seeing it grow. So, that really is what it comes down to us is how do we make this thing as seamless as humanly possible for people to really participate any walk of life and really kind of, focus in on that decentralization. Yes, I hear the maxis out there saying, oh, there's going to be centralized components. At the beginning, there will be. There always is. Our goal is to continually keep iterating to the point where it just runs itself.
That's good. That's good to know. Who is your, let me rephrase that. What is your target vertical for proof of useful work?
So we have really 2 target verticals, the standard tech stack, which is outside of the crypto arena, right? Because, people say, hey, I'm a crypto project and I have I have a blockchain and so on. We're a tech company, really. We're a tech project, think of it that way. And we happen to have a blockchain, right? So the blockchain is what helps drive the back end and address our standard tech stack. So getting out there, we just had Dish Network deploy, some monitoring consoles on it. I think you're going to see some partnerships with Web 2 folks so that we can provide infrastructure to Web 2 people that want to tap into Web 3. I think you're going to see that, cross-border onboarding between Web 2 and Web 3. I don't think Web 2 goes away completely. I'm not a maxi, right? I think it, you had on-prem at the beginning, then you had Web 2, which is, cloud services. And now you have Web 3, which is decentralized cloud services. So I think they're all working together in tandem. The other stack that we're looking at as well is, retail, mid-tier retail and entry-level retail. So, mom and pop shops that want to stand up a nice website, and have some redundancy to it. Small businesses that want to cut down on their IT overhead. Flux is a fraction of what AWS or Microsoft Azure is. So, and maybe mid-tier companies who are already using Web 2 infrastructure, but they want to start expanding their footprint into Web 3, but they don't know how. So proof of use work really opens that door up as well. And we actually, if you want to look at it that way, we have our emerging technology sector. So really tears when you come back to it. Because our emerging technology, edge compute, AI, rendering, so on and so forth, that's going to be drawn in immediately. And I think that compute resource will be sucked up almost right away.
Yeah, I agree. So will the proof of use of work workloads be distributed in regions, kind of like Azure availability zones?
Yeah, you have to. And that's why geolocations was so important for us to deploy on Flux. So we did that better part of a year ago. As we were mapping out what we wanted to add and when, we knew geolocations, were going to be essential. So whether you're doing, 50 GPUs that are going to be doing rendering, you don't want them sitting all the way over in Europe. You want them sitting in the States if you're sitting in the States, and vice versa. So, you'll be able to basically select your particular region. And even down, you can even do it at this point in time. You can do like to the state, and you can do to the city. Now, granted, there could be some variability there, but we built it so you could get really granular. And then, you can also just say, put it wherever. I don't give a crap. Whatever's cheapest, that's where I want to go. And then it's going to deploy it all across the world. So, 100%, we need to make sure that, some of these, especially with edge compute and with AI rendering pieces, big files, long render times, we need to make sure that they're the most logically located in the particular areas. So that just makes sense.
For sure. And a follow-up to that, which I just thought of and didn't have written down, but do you see, or do you feel some areas are going to provide more virtual resources that we could use for useful work than others will? Like, is the US going to be the big chunk of that pie, and then EU and Australia, that kind of thing?
I think it's the EU. I mean, the States has a fairly large representation in Flux, but I think the EU kind of shines, and especially with some of the regulatory challenges that the US has presented. Currently, they're vacillating about what's a security, what's not a security. But the bigger question they're going to get to eventually is, how do we control Web3? And when they start to figure out they can't, that's going to represent challenges. So I think the States are going to be a bit of a challenge for all of us as we move forward, which isn't bad. That's what disruptive technology does. That's why I get up every morning and why I'm pumped to be able to build this thing. There'll be an education component. I myself have already made several trips to DC, and I'll continue to go down there. I have a speaking engagement down there in September to speak to a fairly large swath of folks about the importance of Web3 and the fact that it's an uncomfortable conversation. But instead of waiting to the 11th hour like they did with Bitcoin and decentralized finance, they do it very early and they start to talk about it. So it's like I tell everybody, just because it's decentralized doesn't mean it's lawless. Flux is a very transparent chain. There's no privacy on the Flux in terms of transactional movement is just like Bitcoin. We're really just like a Bitcoin fork. So if you're doing something funky, or if you're doing something nefarious, you're going to get found. So everyone has to understand that we're building it much like Satoshi Nakamoto envisioned Bitcoin, but with additional resources.
And that kind of transitions into another question that I had, but I think you actually just answered it. So in a recent interview, you mentioned Flux is more secure than AWS because it's built on Bitcoin or built from Bitcoin. Can you elaborate on that more?
Well, let's face it. AWS has several surface areas for attack. They have several data centers. That's what they have. Flux is completely decentralized in the sense that it's much like Bitcoin. We're built on the most secure technology that we've ever had, and that is the Bitcoin network. So, our node network is structured so that the proof of work side is integrated with the node network side, so it's proof of use work across the board, and they're basically living symbiotically with that as well. The attack vectors are much thinner because we have a much more secure network, at least in my opinion. And I would say there's a lot of people that would agree with me that if Bitcoin was going to be hacked, it would have been hacked by now. The node network is always representing a challenge. We're always working on building out the best technology. So Flux IPFS, Flux Drive, Flux Cloud. Those are all products that are being built out to make sure that people can control their own data. Controlling your own data and maintaining your own data represents a challenge as well. It's only as secure as you make it. So you have to think about that. We can't babysit folks that deploy infrastructure on Flux. You have to be ready, and you have to make sure that you're locked down nice and tight. But from an infrastructure standpoint, I'll tell you right now, Flux has been going for 5 years. The chain has been going for 5 years. We've never been down. We lost 3/4 of our node, never went down. So, it's weird when somebody asks what's your downtime, and it's like, there isn't any, you know what I mean? Like, but now granted, I mean, it's, you got to think about it as, people deploy infrastructure. There could be blips in the radar. There could be, particular way they set up their servers and front ends, back ends, so on and so forth. So, we try to say it's like 99.5% uptime or something like that. But I mean, I think that's realistic. And I mean, it really comes down to, you got to remember, we're still running a disruptive technology. So if we bump you because an update came out, I'm sorry about that, but that's kind of what we're doing. So you guys have to be really engaged. We're not gonna be as rock solid as AWS, because we're building shit on top of it. AWS is doing it, a lot of maintaining and so on and so forth, but we're really disruptive technology. So I always tell people, if you're scared to have it down for a little bit, you might want to wait and keep it on Web 2 and then deploy it on Web 3 as kind of a load balancing scenario.
It's a good answer. So I'm going to ask this, and feel free to tell me you don't want to answer it, but who is your biggest customer and what services are they using currently?
Oh, geez, that's a loaded question. We have a fair amount of pre-search nodes running on Flux. We have KDA nodes. We have, Haven runs on there. I would say our biggest demographic is blockchain, because it makes the most sense. And, people are vying to be more decentralized, and Flux is just a natural way for them to gravitate toward it. We do have some fairly large enterprise folks, but I don't know if they'd want me to put out their name, so I'm not going to do that. But I would say this: if you really want to get down in the weeds, you can go to our dashboard, our Flux OS dashboard, and you can really see the deployments that are on there as well. So Osmosis runs infrastructure on there. We have Minecraft servers running on there now. They're getting ready to finish the update on the Bedrock edition of Minecraft servers. Game servers are running on there. It's a nice, cheap option for all of that kind of stuff. So, you can see a lot of those customers too. And if you go to the Run on Flux IO website, you can also see people that we work with as well.
Very cool. Thank you. So you state your 5-year projections have already been surpassed. Do you feel like that you've grown too much too fast? We've all seen like the straight up green candles, and we all know that's not sustainable. And I'm specifically talking about, Flux, not the price of Flux, but Flux, the project. How do you plan to continue that growth, and like, where do you go from here, really?
Well, I would respectfully disagree with you. I think that uptrend is part of a natural adoption curve. So if you go into Google and you type in, adoption curve, you'll see that it's almost like this parabolic move. Now, granted, if you start to zoom out or zoom in, or should I say, you'll start to see those incremental bumps up like this. But the fact that if you go to Bunny Analyst right now and you look at the exponential growth of Flux, it's straight like this. But it matches that hockey stick pattern of a normal acceleration of an upstart company, a really successful upstart company. So my anticipation is to continue to keep crushing it. I don't see any reason for us to stop. And as a matter of fact, we're getting ready to pull the beta off our WordPress deployments, which means people can deploy 3 tiers of WordPress infrastructure. We're getting ready to open up proof of use of work. The marketplace is going to be done here probably Q4, so people can start dropping their compute resources and getting paid for their compute resources. So, I've said it before, and I said it again. My target's 5% of the global compute infrastructure, and we're very far off of that. But realistically, people say, is that setting the bar too high? And I don't think it is. I think what we're doing, and as we start to accumulate and pick up speed, and depending on what happens with the economic models in different regions, people are going to be looking for cheaper technology deployment. just because they have to reduce staffing models or reduce whatever to, spend less, the demand for IT is still there. So if I'm looking at AWS and they're charging $100 and I'm looking at Flux and you're charging $5, which way am I going? If they're offering basically the same thing, which we will be, then it makes more sense to go over there. If you're paying the exorbitant, almost extortionary prices of running GPUs for rendering AI and so on and so forth, right? And I can get that fractionally from Flux, which one am I going to use? I'm going to go this way. So our goal was to have a robust working product. We don't tout ourselves. We don't run out there trying to pump ourselves or anything like that. We say organic growth is what gets you there, right? A fully developed product is what gets you there. And if I'm starting to present this to enterprise, mid-tier, and even entry-level folks that are going to use the product, if they go to use it and it sucks, they won't come back. They'll never come back, right? So our goal is to have it so it's so damn seamless. It doesn't feel like blockchain. It feels just like technology. And if you have that exponential model that you're going up just gets bigger and bigger, So long story short is I believe we can continue to keep crushing the numbers. I have new numbers that I ran out, and I think in our State of the Union that's coming up in a few weeks, we'll share some projections. But I've told everybody 5% of global compute. If we can get to that number, we're going to be making some waves.
Yeah, I agree. That's a tall order. We kind of talked about that. It's like we're answering all these questions before I even asked them.
That's all right. I have a habit of doing that.
That's perfectly fine. So if I submit for a useful work job, will I be able to select the type of hardware I want to utilize, or does it auto select, or both? Like I can, or I can just say, do it.
Yep. So we wanted to make it super simple. So, if you're somebody that's enterprise and you have a specific, hey, I need A100s and that's all I'm going to use, right? You're going to be able to select that. Or, hey, I need, 400 GPUs. I don't give a shit what they are in terms of combination. I just need the total compute resources. You can do it that way, or it can just randomly pick anything for you. Now, obviously, if you're starting to isolate particular infrastructure, the queue could be longer because those cards could be already wrapped up in other useful work jobs. So you have to wait for them to basically finish. So my suggestion is start out using a random deployment, see how long it takes for your project to happen. And then if you want to get into specifics, you can get into specifics as well. I can tell you right now, I could totally see 1 or 2 large projects coming in to book up the majority of the useful work model almost day one. So, which is going to be really interesting. It's going to change how we mine completely and totally. And, that's going to be kind of exciting. So can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. So jumping off of the useful work subject and kind of onto other things, Flux. So regarding the expansion of ports on the Flux nodes, I know that was kind of a hot topic a couple of weeks ago. Do you plan to have different tiers with different payout structures for enterprise workloads versus consumer workloads for those users that don't want to expand those additional ports? Or is it just, this is how it's working, tough cookies?
Yeah, it's kind of, this is how it's working, tough cookies. But I think we are working on honing in on less ports being readily available. I think the concern was the fact that people didn't want that many ports running at home. Fact is, you can go out, if you get a good network setup, you can do it. So it's like anything else. What blows my mind is people will spend thousands of dollars on graphics cards, right? Somebody goes out and builds a 6-card rig and it's, $400, $500 a graphics card, but they bitch about getting a good router. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, this is, if you want to participate in the network, you got to do what you got to do. So am I a wizard with that stuff? No, but I'll figure it out. I'll figure out how to run my nodes. I'll figure out how to mine. I figured out how to do that. It's part of the process. So, if it doesn't work for you and you're not comfortable with it, then just don't do it. Simple as that. But we will have the ability to have like more enterprise tier. And by the way, the higher the enterprise, the higher the price. So there'll be an area that will be fulfilled by, entry level. Dan wants to do a rendering job. He doesn't give a shit about, how long it takes. He just wants to get it done. Or maybe I want to put some time limits to it. It's going to be X amount of dollars. The enterprise is going to be more highly available and highly responsive. That's going to be at a higher rate. And as those people get tapped for those particular jobs, they're going to be making bank. Because, even though it's quite substantially less than the $700,000 a day ChatGPT spends on GPUs, it's still going to be pretty damn good in the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can do the math. You can start to do the math and see, we'll have a calculator that you can run and actually see, around about what you'll be making, like almost like an estimate of if I get tapped for this useful work job, what will I make? And, I always tell everybody when you come down and you see that you've been tapped for useful work, you'll be like, boom. It's like hitting a block, right? Boom.
Heck yeah.
Money time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that for sure. There are some things on your Q4 roadmap that, to me at least, aren't super clear. Can you elaborate on Flux University, the Cirrus Node Test Network, and Project Enigma?
All right, so we have a perfect breeding ground for education. So we've started to talk with University Blockchain Alliance and other universities all around the world about doing actual training on the Flux network. So basically allowing people to be, because we're kind of used to it now. We go to a university or a college, we can do online, we can do brick and mortar, we can do all that stuff. Flux U would allow you to do all those things, and you can do it completely free of charge on the Flux network. So Dan could create a class, and I will. I've already started it. I've started mapping out what I'm going to do. Actually, I'm going to do like 3 different classes. One is basically how to be a founder of a product, right? So that's going to be like a 4-hour class. Accountability experience, which helps people really start to learn about personal accountability and responsibility, so on and so forth. I'll have that on there as well. And then there's a mystery one that I'm going to do that's going to be really cool, which is the history of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So, because everybody's like people that are coming into the space now, they don't necessarily know all the nuances of history. Who is Hal Finney? Who's Craig Wright and why is he an asshole? Things like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's cool. It's cool. And people will be able to go in, they'll be able to register, they'll be able to take a class, have interaction with the, instructor. And then at the end of it, they get a certificate saying that they participated in the class and now you're part of Flux University. So, these are all things that are like, and I've said it before and I said again, the biggest thing lacking in the blockchain space is education, because education is a breeding ground for disruptive folks to really start to build their products, right? So they don't necessarily, and coders, developers are not exactly the most articulate folks in the book. So we've got to get them some skills. And so instead of sitting in your basement coding all day, they can go take a Flux University class and they can learn about accountability experience. What's the difference between accountability, responsibility, personal empowerment, so on and so forth. And I'm going to listen to Dan teach that class, and it's like totally cool. And then I get a cert at the end of it. So these education pieces, completely free of charge by anyone around the world that wants to do it, is going to be absolutely huge.
Wow, that is impressive.
So that's Flux University. I think you'll probably see like the first version of it come out in Q4. Might be Q1, depending on how proof of use of work flows, but you'll see it soon. Okay. The next one you asked about was
the Cirrus testnet.
So the Cirrus. So if everybody knows anything about Flux, we'll pretend that everybody listening to this doesn't know anything about Flux. You got the Cumulus, Nimbus, and Stratus nodes. That's our enterprise. That's our meat and potatoes. That's what our front ends, back ends, websites, WordPress, name it. It runs on there. But we're going to have a 4th tier of node called a Cirrus node. A Cirrus node, you'll be able to participate with a very small amount of Flux, and you'll be able to participate in edge compute. You're able to participate in AI, and it'll be right inside the Fluxcore proof of use of work console. So Dan can go in. Dan can go in. He can set up Fluxcore. He can mine Flux. And once I've reached a certain amount of Flux, I can select the Cirrus node. It then deploys a Cirrus node and then allows you to participate in proof of use work that way as well. So The other thing is I call it the world's biggest test net, because the folks that are deploying those Cirrus nodes are eventually going to want to deploy a Cumulus, Nimbus, or Stratus node. So it gets them in a habit of, okay, what does this node do? How does it work? How do I get to the next level? And I personally have donated a lot of Flux to emerging third worlds that I want them to be able to deploy these things and start using them. We're also going to be deploying some nodes, all kinds of different stuff. But the Cirrus nodes is a huge part for us to be able to allow people to participate at any level. And we're hopeful that that's Q4 as well. It could be moved to Q1 depending on proof of use work and whether or not we have to bridge that. So we said Q4, Q1, something like that. And then the last one you had was Enigma.
Yes. So
Enigma is an interesting one. It's already kind of running in the background. Enigma was built, if you know what the Enigma machine was, it was actually in World War II. It was what the Germans used to basically code their communications back and forth. And the Allies actually captured the Enigma machine, and they were able to break the code and therefore help to expedite them winning the war. So as we looked at Ethereum and we looked at different providers, Infura and so on and so forth, they all of a sudden started censoring transactions. And a majority of the Ethereum network is relying on an Infura network, which is completely centralized, running on AWS and other, centralized products. So it's kind of hard to say that you're focused on decentralization when you're depending on Infura or other products that are basically running on top of AWS. Doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah.
So what we did was we've deployed, there's 3 types of Ethereum nodes. There's the like the small node, then there's like a mid-tier, and then there's an archival node. We've already deployed 2 of the 3 tiers. And we've done this for Cadena as well. We've deployed their pack software, whatever, all their different node structures and so on and so forth. So our goal is to be able to open that up to pretty much anybody to utilize that infrastructure. And because it's running on Flux, it's not censorable. And we think that that's super important because it's people talk a lot of shit about being decentralized, but then if, the majority or all of their network runs on centralized components, you're not decentralized. So Enigma is basically giving us the ability to go at Infura and other, data providers like that and showcase exactly what Flux can do.
Yeah, that's important. Just like, Project Mayhem being a decentralized, big piece of AI detection, really. There's nobody that can come in and say, uncheck the box that says this is not AI or whatever it is. So that's really good to hear that you guys are working on that.
Mayhem is by far my most excited. I'm the most excited about that out of anything.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about proof of use work, but the fact that we can showcase a truth model for AI on a decentralized network that isn't controlled by any one particular input model, that's huge. The bottom line is this is going to be that frontline defense for that, that kickback that you're already starting to hear about AI. Like, oh my God, we've got, professors that are getting term papers turned in and they're completely AI generated and there's no way for them to figure it out. Or you have these deep fakes. And by the way, these deep fakes are ridiculously good. I mean, I saw one the other day. They had Donald Trump doing a rap diss to Eminem, and it was freaking, it was excellent.
Wow.
And I showed it to my wife, and she's like, did he really do that? And I'm like, no, honey, this is AI. But you know what I mean? We're going to get to the point where it's going to be so damn good that, we're going to need a truth model that isn't maintained or controlled by one politically affiliated, group or, Bill Gates and his mind's eye of what he believes it should look like. It's, the thing about AI is input, whatever the input model is, that's the output model. With Mayhem, whatever the input model is, we're making sure the input models were captured, and we'll tell you whether or not it's bullshit or not. So, it's by far one of the most exciting ones that we're working on, and our Skunkworks, lab that we're working on is really excited to see it continue to grow.
Yeah, I really think that's a sleeper that people are going to be very surprised at how successful it is and how much it's going to be utilized kind of under the hood, so to speak.
Yeah, it just blows my mind because, like, I look around and I survey all of the blockchains landscape, and it's like there's nobody doing what Flux is doing. We're literally building the next version of the internet, the next version of truth models for AI, of decentralized cloud provider, you name it. And what you see a lot of these projects out there, and they're like, "Yeah, I got a fast layer 1." Well, fuck, congratulations, man!
Yeah.
Like, who gives a shit, right? So the technology aspect of it is so strong within Flux, and we don't care about all the white noise that goes on out there. All we want to do is build, and that shines through, definitely.
Yeah, on a recent interview, I'd said, looking at Dynex as another project, I look at them as a decentralized, like Adobe After Effects, where I compare Flux to a decentralized AWS because of all of the things that Flux is doing, all the fingers out there touching all of the pieces of cloud. Whereas some of these other projects are really good at like this. You guys are really taking on the bigger picture, and I love it. Just with my background and my day job, and all the things all the squirrels that I chase, I love Flux. I'm all about it.
I like that. All the squirrels I chase. I'm yanking that. Yoink. I'm taking
Go for it.
Well, the nice thing about Flux, and you mentioned Dynex, regardless of how I feel about that project, I mean, I think you're going to see multiple versions of proof of use work out there, and I think they're going to be symbiotically working together. So whether Dynex is building that out, or you have another project that's working on another version of proof of use work, Flux is going to be the tie that binds them all together. We're building the marketplace, so I could absolutely see Dynex being able to participate in the Flux marketplace. I could see other products out there continue to keep building on it. So proof of use work isn't a Flux thing. It's a blockchain thing. And I said that before, when Satoshi stamped proof of work for Bitcoin, he knew if you didn't like it, fork it, build what the next iteration is. And that's why we have so many proof of work products. It's going to be the same scenario with proof of use work. They're going to stamp it, they're going to build it out, and they're going to be able to integrate it across the board. So I think it's strength in numbers, as we continue to keep growing.
Tell me more about decentralized databases. Flux has a decentralized database, right? How does it compare to like traditional SQL?
Well, we really kind of based it and kind of geared it around traditional SQL. And ultimately, we had to make it a more decentralized model. Like I can't necessarily get into the technicals, because whenever those guys talk, I just get a glazed look over my face. It's like, okay, this works like SQL, right? Yeah, okay, cool. That's whatever. We're continuing to build up on that. As a matter of fact, we're just getting ready to roll out our newest update on Flux Domain Manager. We're continuing to work on our database backup piece. So you'll have basically like well, you're an IT guy. Remember, what was it? Carbon Black, I believe, was the backup software. Or I think it was a Carbon Black. What was the really good, rock solid backup stuff, and not the Symantec bullshit? I can't remember.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of them out there. The Veeams, the Carbon Blacks,
Yeah.
So
I mean, kind of way I envision it, it looks a little bit like the Carbon Black. And once we get our Sentinel nodes in place, because there'll be Sentinel nodes running on the network as well. Basically, they're decentralized nodes that run, and they just monitor the network traffic, make sure you don't have somebody running a botnet or some other horse shit. So we're going to tie that all back together in a single pane of glass, so that people will be able to utilize that effectively and know that their network is protected, and so on and so forth. So are we exactly where we want to be with our decentralized database? No, we're not. But we're going to continue to keep plowing forward on that. And by the end of this year in Q4, we're going to have the best version that I think you can get. And the fact that it's not relying on a third-party vendor to be decentralized database. There are other products out there that are doing that. They're using a third party for their decentralized. That doesn't make any damn sense. Then you're under control by whatever that they decide to do. So, we want to make sure that it was an in-house, homegrown, decentralized product, and we're there.
And it really does say a lot. And this is kind of more of like Flux in general, and really a lot of projects that I've seen in this space. I mean, we see a lot of fly-by-nights, like I'm not going to name anybody, but we see a lot of fly-by-nights that stand up something and then they just let it run and set it, forget it kind of thing. Flux is continuing development.
They depend on, what was Satoshi Nakamoto's quote? He said, I'm on to different things, right? Bitcoin is in good hands. And that philosophy worked for Bitcoin because it was an open source project, and, Flux is an open source project. But if you want to do something greater than just transactional validation and consensus model and just moving money from point A to point B, you need people that are going to be committed to the ongoing development. Flux has a better part of 70 developers across it. You know, these are all community people. These are all people that are working on the project most of them full time now at this point. You know, I think you have to be involved in this product to get it to, I call it critical mass. Once we've reached critical mass, we'll be able to basically send it. And then we work on the support models, right? So we're very close to being that critical mass where we're just going to send it. You can already, we have right now today, we have a company developing a new wallet model around Flux. We have a new onboarding partner that's building an onboarding model. We have an enterprise-based infrastructure that has basically massive data facilities building a model for Flux. These are all happening all at the same time, and none of them are us. When I say us, like us in the community, these are all happening outside of it. So people are starting to see the value of, hey, maybe I need to build my business model on Flux. And I think that's what you're going to see a lot more of.
Well, and I think we'll see a lot more of that in cloud first companies. Like it takes a lot to lift and shift out of AWS and lift and shift everything out of Azure, even from Azure to AWS or Azure back to on-prem, things like that. That's a huge move. But a lot of these startup companies, and I see this in my day job, when it's just 3 guys in their garage and they hire 10 people because they got a big, project or whatever that they have to work on. They're cloud first. They're going to look at Azure Active Directory opposed to putting a server in the closet. They're going to look at these things, and having Flux as a forefront of that cloud first technology, it's just a no-brainer. I mean, it's just another avenue to go down that's cheaper, just as reliable, but not under anybody else's thumb.
Yeah, and people need to think about that. And actually, that's a perfect segue. I want to bring up something is that migratory process of moving from like on-prem to Web 2 and then Web 2 to Web 3. We have to build those onboarding tools so that it feels like Web 2 to Web 3 is about the same thing, right? So we actually are taking it a step further. And when you do, eventually, when you start to do your onboarding process and you get to a certain point, you can, pick your deployment of servers. We've already started working with OVH and Lumen to be able to deploy in Web 2 and Web 3 at the same time, and vice versa. If somebody's in Web 2 and they want to maybe keep some cost reduction by deploying in Web 3, they're going to do it. So you will absolutely see, and as a matter of fact, there's a screenshot floating around on the internet that shows, the Flux logo with the OVH, with the Lumen logo, and then you can select which one you want to do, and you can do load balance deployments between them. So that's huge because and I know if we can make it super simple for people, those people you were just talking about, to be able to tune up that infrastructure and then have the cost savings and the decentralization that comes with Web3, but the security for that front end, or maybe they have a database server they're running. They want to make sure that that's, Web 2. Now we all of a sudden they're in tandem. So that's a game changer.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Davey or Jeffkey always says, "Where's my easy button?" And it sounds like that's what you guys are really trying to build.
Yeah, he wants to even get it easier yet. I said, well, you got to make it a little hard. Come on, man. No, but he always wants to make it like super easy, and that's the way we need it to be.
Makes sense. Same question, but about Flux Drive. What is Flux Drive? Who uses it? Where does the data live? How's it secured? Is it S3 object storage? Yada, yada.
Okay, so Flux Drive is basically decentralized Dropbox. You can use it today. If you go to our website, go in, you can sign up for it today. You can pay in crypto, you can pay in fiat, blah, blah, blah. And then you can store your data. It's not the cheapest thing out there yet, guys, because we haven't deployed it out of beta. Once it's out of beta and we have all the hard drive space we can use, whether we integrate a Filecoin or storage or whatever the scenario is, right? We're going to bring in other projects to help with that. And it's all built on IPFS. So it's basically a sharded data network. So, I mean, for lack of a better term, your data is on an IPFS storage function. You have a front end. We're going to have, right now it's on PC based, but we're going to have it on mobile as well. So you can access your data anywhere. And you own your data. It's yours. It's not on somebody else's server where if they arbitrarily decided they don't like you, they're going to remove you. So, that's the cool thing about Flux Drive. Right now it's in beta. We have one of the 3 tiers open. We're going to eventually open all 3 tiers up and get the costs down, because right now they're kind of high because we're only utilizing this much of the network. So the prices are a little bit higher for deployments, but we had to keep them that way. We didn't want somebody going in and hogging it all up. So you had to make it a little higher so that people come in and they're like, I'll buy that, just to test it out. So we've got, 5, 6, 700,000 users, something like that, using it already. And we've not even pulled the wrapper off of it, So I use it and I love it. I jump in there, log in, boom, there's my stuff. So, we're working right now to help. Right now you had to have Zelcore to basically access all these pieces. We've added Wallet Connect, and we've also added what's the other one? It's Wallet Connect and but anyway, and we're adding multiple login ways, right? So and that's a huge piece as well. MetaMask, there you go. MetaMask, there we go. I knew it'd come to me eventually.
How can you forget that one? That kind of transitions into another question that just popped up in my head earlier this morning when I was working on day job stuff. Would Flux create a decentralized version of Microsoft 365? Now, when I say that specifically, I'm thinking like SharePoint, Teams, Office apps, or is it, are you solely focused on like the IaaS and PaaS solution?
Well, let me tell you something. We, as in the Flux team, the people that are developing proof of use work, we're not looking at it. But there is somebody that's looking at deploying that and an open source platform. And it would have, I don't know how much I can talk about this. Okay, so it's definitely going to have like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, the Office suite, right? But it's also going to have decentralized email integration that runs on top of Flux. So I can't tell you who it is. All I can tell you is there's somebody that's building that out. And honestly, once they just deploy it, it's just like any other app. And then people can go sub to it, and it'll automatically be back end into Flux Drive. So now think of 365 or OneDrive. Everything is kind of looped together. You go to that nice little landing page, and everything's right there. You can do the same thing on Flux. They're just different apps, and they're all working together. So these folks that are going to deploy it, they're going to be doing it for pennies on the dollar of what you're paying for, Microsoft Office. And, let's face it, we've all used the Google products. It's dog shit at best. You know what I mean? We use it because we have to use it, but it isn't great. And this product is, I think, going to, definitely give some competition there.
I definitely want to play with that one. I'm the Microsoft guy, so that'll just click with me for sure. Let's see.
There's high expectations. If you're a Microsoft guy, you're going to beat it up hard. But for somebody like me that I'm like maybe a mid user, I'm mid at best. As my son would say, you're mid. I don't know what that means. I guess it means middle of the road. I don't know. It'll definitely be way more than what I need. But for some of the advanced folks, it might not, they might still have to have a copy of Excel running somewhere.
Well, you got to start somewhere. And that's the important part, is it's starting, it's happening, and it has Flux to build on. Okay, so a couple of questions from the community. I put it out on Discord, on my Discord server, the last couple of days. Hey, what do you want me to ask Dan? One was, will Fluxcore be accessible outside the LAN? Like Hive OS, you can get to it at any internet connection. You just log in and there it is.
Oh,
is
yeah.
It gonna be...
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 100%. Yep. Yeah. And for all intents and purposes, this does feel a lot like, the way that if you've used Hive OS in the past, it'll feel a little bit like that, but it's not, you know what I mean? Yeah. And as a matter of fact, there could be some Hive OS components that are working together symbiotically with, Fluxcore. I've got so many damn names in my head.
So many things.
But yeah, we want to make it super easily accessible, and we want you to be able to log into it anywhere you go, and to be able to, because remember, the ultimate goal is a single pane of glass. Whether you have ASICs, whether you have, proof of work, whether you have mining, whatever, we want to be able to see it all in one place. Your node structure, you'll be able to view all of your nodes, restart, deploy your nodes right inside of Fluxcore. So the ultimate goal is to get it all in one spot. It doesn't mean shit if you don't make it mobile and make it available. So yes, absolutely. Great question.
Are there going to be any fees associated with using it, like a dev fee just for using the dashboard on the platform? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're going to set it up so that it's fair. I mean, but you know, when you're running these products don't build themselves for free. We need to make sure that
Right.
we have something out there that we can continue to keep. To this point, the project's been basically funded by Bootstrap, you know, community members that have worked together, so on and so forth. But we want to get to the point where we can continue to keep adding features, and the only way we can do that is if we make a little money off of that. So yes, there will be some fees in there. I don't know what they'll be. They'll be very reasonable, and we'll make sure we get plenty of input from the community. I would almost guarantee if folks know that this goes toward further development and they can see additional features being added into it on a rapid clip, they're going to be very willing to do that. I know that I am, because I want everything in one pane of glass. I want my nodes, proof of use work, my mining rigs, everything. Boom, right there. I don't have to worry about shit. It's all in one spot.
Yeah, there's your easy button. Easy buttons aren't free.
Easy, yes.
Will we be able to opt out of useful work and just use the dashboard for all the other things, the crypto mining, the node management, the ASIC management, things like that?
Absolutely. And you can do it by one of two ways, which is pretty amazing. You can do it down to the GPU, or you can do it by a rig. So say Dan has 10 rigs. I want 5 of my rigs to be able to be available for proof of use of work. And the other 5 I'm running, mining a piping hot shitcoin, right? So I want to make sure that they're doing what it needs to do. So, basically in the end, it's flexibility, and you can pick and choose. The other thing too is, let's hypothetically say Dan built an awesome gaming rig, and I got 2 killer graphics cards in there, and I don't want it to work during the day. I don't want it to mine, and I don't want it to do proof of use work during the day. But when I go to bed at 7 o'clock, I want it to come on and be available for use work and for mining. You can absolutely set that up. So you'll be able to set up the times, I want it to start at 7. And then if, like, say there's a little pop-up that comes up that says you're getting ready to, go into use of work. Do you want to pause it for an hour? And if you don't answer it, it just goes to town.
Look at you. You're answering my other questions before I even ask him again. Okay. So is there a date for the parallel asset number 10 snapshot yet?
Yes. Matter of fact, we are announcing it today. It's going to be October 31st on Halloween.
Awesome.
So we did another one on Halloween, and that was a lot of fun. So I think we'll do it this one. We haven't announced what the PA is. All I can tell you is we're focused on a proof of work project. That's all I can tell you. Awesome. It makes sense. You could probably go through and look at a bunch of different stuff. I'm not saying it's 100% going to be that proof of work product. But we want to try to get another proof of work product in there on the last one. And remember, this is the last of the snapshots, but we're going to continue to keep adding parallel assets for infinity. You know what I mean? As many as makes sense to the project, because people ask that as well. They're like, what happens after 10? Oh, we just keep doing it. But
is it not going to be paid out as a secondary?
It will not be incentivized, but you would get your parallel mining distributions.
Okay, cool. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So you won't get the snapshot, but you'll definitely get the PA mining distributions.
I think this has been answered before. I'm pretty sure it has. I know Davey's told me specifically. Is there going to be a minimum on the bandwidth for useful work? Like with Fractus, you have to have 100 meg. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there will be. I don't know what that is yet, and they're working on the benchmark right now to figure that out. And let's face it, you can't be doing AI because all of your AI work is going to be done locally. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to download the job, then you're going to locally process it, and then you're going to send it back up once it's complete. You can't take forever to download that, that job.
It's not going to happen on DSL.
So you have to have you have to have, enterprise-based, bandwidth. So yeah, it's a little bit higher, but remember, we are going to tier this out. So somebody that maybe has a 50 meg or, whatever line, they can participate, but they won't get the premium deployments. They're going to get lesser deployment. So our goal is to keep everybody included as much as humanly possible. So if you have potato internet, you can still participate, but it's going to be at a much lower rate than somebody that's going to be tapped for, an enterprise job.
Right. And that makes sense. I mean, that just makes sense. These questions are going to be more towards you, Dan, as a co-founder, owner, in the role that you're in. Okay. What has been the biggest mistake Flux has made that you wish you made sooner, or learned from others who made the same mistake, what did you learn from it?
We make mistakes every day, man. And some of them are bigger than others. And
Sure.
the one thing that we do is we fail quickly and we learn from it. And then we work toward, a solution. I think if I have to look back at the past 5 years, I think some of the biggest challenges or the biggest mistakes that I made was maybe trying to include people into a project that they probably shouldn't have been there. They couldn't conventionally think outside of, the box, because disruptive technology is ugly and messy. But what I've gotten better at doing personally is setting expectations very early on. You are going to get your ass kicked every day. You are going to feel like, am I ever going to get this fixed? You are going to have curveballs out of right field. All of a sudden, they want to go after Web3, or, in the mining world, it's, they want to go after privacy coins. Well, we got to remove the privacy feature. They want to, you have to have a Howie memo. Okay, how do we get that taken care of? So these are all things we learn from. So my failure, I wear it as a badge of honor. I frick up a lot. I mean, a lot. But here's the thing: I learn from it. So when I mess up, I have a team around me that can help get me back on track again, or I can help them get back on track again, and then we learn from each other and we move on. So, we're very vocal about our mess ups. I mean, people can come to me, and whether you like me or dislike me, there's plenty of people out there that dislike me. There's plenty of people like me. Either way, I'm straightforward. I just tell you how it is. You know what I mean? I don't sit there and fluff it up and try to sell you something that's, that isn't what it's going to be. Whether you like it or not, that's the way it is. And I think more people need to be honest like that. And I think probably at the beginning, as we were building this project, I wasn't as aggressive as I am nowadays with being very direct. I kind of relied on other outlets for people to talk. I go straight to you guys. I go straight to the community now, and I get the input. And a lot of times it's great feedback, and sometimes you guys kick my ass, and that's okay. And I like that. So yeah, I mean, I'm a vocal person, and I speak my mind. I tell the people this all the time. Look, I'm the co-founder of Flux, but I'm just a community member. There's no CEO of Flux. It doesn't exist. Yeah. I just happen to be the biggest, loudest mouth in the room, right? And I champion a project I believe in, and that's important. So yeah, I think learning to be more reserved when I need to be reserved, and more aggressive when I need to be more aggressive, and understanding who it is that I'm talking to. Who am I communicating with? Am I communicating with the community where it can be a little bit more raw, a little bit more direct, or am I communicating with an enterprise that wants to come in? I need to be more refined and more, succinct to what their missions and ministry is. So, yep,
sure.
That's my thing. Is we all fail, and I think we just learn from it.
That's a good answer. Thank you. So we kind of touched on this a little bit. What regulations are you seeing the future of Flux going up against? And how are you proactively planning for that now?
Oh, I think once the uncomfortable conversation comes about the fact that people can't control blockchain. You know what I mean? It's not, you can't call Bitcoin up and tell them to take a transaction out, right? Once people start to figure out exactly, and I can tell you right now, AWS stalks my LinkedIn account regularly. I go in and sometimes I'll post it on Twitter and be like, I see you, because they're in there looking at stuff, right? It's going to be a real deep conversation about the regulatory piece because, especially in the United States, they're trying to control the narrative. They're trying to control these large data providers, and you can't do that with Flux. So instead of being reactive, so somebody did something bad, they go to AWS, shut these guys down. You have to become proactive. You have to understand what is being deployed on the network, how is it being deployed on the network, and what analytics can you do to understand what's being deployed on the network. Because once it's out there, it's out there. So that's going to be a very deep conversation. I can tell you right now, I've had conversations with government officials who they couldn't conceptually grasp it till I mapped it out for them, and then they're like, "Oh shit." Yeah. Oh shit, that's right. Yeah.
The
So
oh shit moment. Yeah.
yeah. So I think there's going to be a headwind of, you're already starting to see the U.S. start to stir around this regulatory thing where they're like, what was the name of that act they were trying to push out there? Like the Security Act or the Privacy Act, whatever the hell it was. It was none of that. It was basically trying to control, major data. And if you look at what, the U.S. government did with Twitter and censoring people, so on and so forth. Yeah, we've got our work cut out for us. And it is going to be uncomfortable. The proactive that I'm doing is I've reached out to multiple, senators, Congress, there's several blockchain alliances that have been formed. And I'm like, look, I'm part of the Global Blockchain Alliance. These are all things that are like, you start planting the seeds now that you can harvest later. And I think that that's the biggest thing is, explaining to people that what you think about data and where it's located is wrong.
No,
right?
yeah.
It won't be that way forever. Trying to explain Bitcoin to somebody in, 2011 was like, oh my God. I mean, I don't know how long you've been in the space, but I've been in the space for a long time. And it was like, yeah, the concept was there, but they didn't catch it. And now finally they're getting it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I first heard about Bitcoin 2010. I was a general manager at a Papa John's, and one of my delivery drivers was all about it and telling me about it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, fine, go take that delivery. And now fast forward, 10 years later, 2020-ish, I really start getting into it and into mining and into crypto. And I'm like, oh shit, if I knew then what I know now, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, don't even get me started. I've messed up so many damn times. It's unreal. But every mess up, gave birth to something new. Like I lost a shit ton of Bitcoin because bad wallet maintenance. You know what I mean? I was dumb, had a hard drive, recycled it, forgot my Bitcoin was on it, didn't have it backed up, blah, 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 blah. That gave birth to Zelcore. So all of these different components that are out there, because we failed or because we had a problem, we ended up coming up with a solution.
All right, on to the fun stuff. So Cypherpunk. What's the point of Cypherpunk? What are we trying to accomplish here?
So Cypherpunk it's like the unconsensus, right? So consensus is the big ass event they have every year, and they charge people $2,000 to walk in the door, and you get to listen to people shill their bags all day long. It's absolutely ridiculous. Cypherpunk, you're paying like $150 with your meals included. You come in and you get to listen to people that are in the space, miners, influencers, technologists, so on and so forth. And, our goal is to make blockchain decentralized again, right? Because we were disrupted. We had conventional finance come in, the Genesis of the world, the Sam Bankman-Frieds of the world. All of a sudden, legacy finance came in, and they were like, they disrupted us. So we're supposed to be the disruptors. They disrupted us. So we're taking it back now. So our goal is to focus in on anybody that goes to these major conferences, and this because, of Mining Disrupt, the real party, the real meat and potatoes happens after the conference, right? Or at the bar, or, back at somebody's Airbnb. So what we're doing is we're bringing that feeling that we have, when we were sitting in Mining Disrupt, and we're bringing that back to the main conference. So there'll be, rig building competitions. There'll be, Q&As. There'll be roundtables. There'll be, really awesome speakers, but we're not going to put all the focus on everybody gets 5 minutes or 10 minutes and you get through and you have to listen to 80 speakers. It's going to be very well developed, and it's going to mean participation from the people that are there as well. So, it's going to be an open mic style, engaging piece. Our roundtables will bring people from the audience up if they want to participate. It's about getting people excited and involved in blockchain and not chilling your bags. It isn't about Flux. We don't care. We happen to be the one putting it on, but we bring projects from all over.
Yeah, and I'm excited about the rig building competition. So after this, you'll have to give me the down and dirty on how I can, what all equipment's going to be there, so I can pre-plan and make sure.
No.
That's
half the fun, and you are definitely in it. That's for damn sure. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
I'll be there.
And we're going to have a trophy for whoever wins. So it's going to be tiered. I can build a rig, but I'm slow as shit, so I'm not doing it. but there are other folks that are going to be involved, and then you'll get the crown of Cypherpunk rig builder extraordinaire. I don't know. It'll be a lot of fun though, and everything's going to be televised. That's the other thing is
cool.
we're streaming the entire event. The entire event's going to get streamed.
Yeah.
All the YouTubers and everybody else that are going to be doing interviews, we want them to be able to participate and so on and so forth. So yeah, we're super excited about it.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be fun, and I will definitely see you there for sure. Well, I think this kind of comes to the conclusion of our shooting the shit conversation here today. Dan, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you coming on and having a conversation with me.
Awesome. And thanks for having me on. If anybody has any questions, you're more than welcome to hit us up in Discord. You can follow us online at runonflux.io. You can follow me at @DAK_Flux. And just ask questions, guys, gals. I mean, we love to help. And hopefully, if you go to Cypherpunk website right now, tickets are 50% off. So you guys,
oh, wow.
I will tell you that's only for a few days, and then we're going to move it back up to the next tier again. So get there, get your ticket. I'm personally giving away 20 tickets. So if you want to go and you're in the Fort Lauderdale area and you can't afford it, hit me up. I'll take care of you. So I'm looking forward to seeing lots of faces and having a lot of fun.
Great. Thank you, Dan.
All right. Thank you.